Hey friends, I have Melanie Cook today joining us for the whole CEO with Veritas Management Group. She was one of the 50 fastest women-owned businesses that WPO nominated earlier this year. So, Melanie, thanks for your willingness to just spend a few minutes sharing your story with other female CEOs. It's important for us to be able to tell how we got here and where we're going next. So, can we start out real quickly? Just give us an elevator overview of what Veritas Management Group does, who you serve.
Sure. So thank you for the opportunity to share my story and share hopefully some nuggets that will help other female entrepreneurs achieve success. So Veritas Management Group, we are a public health consulting company. So 90% of our work is in the public health space. So we support organizations, federal agencies, pharmaceutical companies, health systems, global health organizations, um, military organizations. We support them in what they do. So we help
Okay.
them achieve their mission. So whether it's technical assistance, evaluation, we do a lot of global health work, and that usually involves some advisory work where we're working with side by side with other NGOs or other USG organizations in supporting the ministries of health in various countries. And usually that's around communicable diseases. So obviously you can see the US interest in that. So we have been in about 10 different countries doing that type of work. So it's been very exciting. And we feel very fortunate to be able to take what we've learned in the US and apply it overseas. So that's an elevator pitch about a little bit about what we do. But like I said, it's different, almost different every year because each client has a different problem.
Yeah,
But we bring the same set of tools to help them figure out how to work smarter, faster, and more efficiently.
I love that because that is kind of the focus of this interview, how you can grow and scale your business. In order to be designated as one of the 50 fastest women-owned businesses, you have to achieve certain revenue growth over 3 years. So, you want to give us a synopsis of how you achieved that growth to qualify?
Sure. So I knocked on a lot of doors. I mean, literally, I was telling someone that um, I had 40 meetings before I got my first contract.
Uh-huh.
And the only reason I remember that is because I was very meticulous about keeping my records. And so at that time, before I could invest in any kind of CRM or anything like that, I just kept a spreadsheet,
Yeah.
an Excel spreadsheet. And so I just went back and I counted. And that was very humbling statistic for me. So I did a lot of marketing. I found a niche and I found that some customers, I used to work for another company and I had some of the same customers that I wanted to market to when I started my company. And they said, "Oh, yeah, we thought you were great, but that was your company back there. We need to see your track record." So I started out really small, working on a lot of very small projects and developing those relationships and developing that brand that no matter what we do with excellence and we perform at a very high level. So I would say those two things are so key, those relationships, because basically, people say all the time, people do business with people they know,
Yeah.
but it's more than that. It's much more than that. I found that when people find a good vendor, they will go back to them because their name is on the line, right? And
Yeah.
so once I really appreciated that, someone told me, um, gosh, I probably won't be able to remember the name now, but there was this show, um, and it'll come back to me in a moment. Yeah, it'll come back to me in a moment. But basically, the essence of it is become someone that no matter what your customer needs, they think of you.
Yeah.
And so most of the time you hope that they will think of you in your core services. But even if they don't think about you in their core services, still try to help them out.
Yeah.
Elgin, that's what it was. So Murphy Brown. I'm dating myself, but there was a show called Murphy Brown.
Yeah.
And from the day that she started to the day that she signed off, there was Elgin working in her house. He started out as a painter, but it was like, okay, how many? She lives in an apartment. So how much painting can he do? But when you thought about it, he was doing a little bit of everything because she trusted him.
Yeah.
And so that's the advice that I got from someone is become an Elgin. Become someone that's trusted, that that you're wanted, that people actually call you and they refer you. And so that's the main thing that we did. We built that trust. We built some really good models about how we deliver our work. We don't only focus on one thing. That's another thing that I would say. We don't really focus on one thing. We provide at first, we didn't know exactly what was going to take in the market and what was going to resonate. So we tried our hand at doing different things within the public health industry. So even now, we probably provide about 7 different types of services that align with each other. So that's another thing that I would say is that if you if you focus on one thing, it may be hard to scale just based on that business model.
Yeah.
Um, Another part of our business model is that um, we like butts and seats.
Right.
So in long-term contracts. So that was really our kind of success formula is that I really figured out, okay, this is how I can multiply. This is how we can, nothing is guaranteed beyond a month. But we did want to look at opportunities that had the potential for long-term growth. So those were some of the things that working for another company I learned about this industry. And so I was able to roll those lessons over into my own company.
Would you say the increase in alternate revenue streams was part of why you were able to scale your growth?
Yes, yes. I think that the reason I'm hesitating is because those alternate revenue streams were very complementary. And so
Okay.
it's not as if we did, we started doing one thing and we, started doing something completely different. We
Yeah.
do have a few things that are very different because our customers called us and said, can you do this? Or we got a referral. And we said yes. And fortunately, some of those things that are kind of off the beaten path, outside of our core, those have been some of the most reliable contracts.
Nice.
They withstood a lot of pushback and things like that. So we look at those a little differently now. We don't look at them as off center. We look at that as that's part of our core now.
I love that you offered complimentary services. We also, with my company, will do a complimentary benchmark or risk assessment just because that shows somebody that you care about
Mhm.
their business, even if
Mhm.
there's not a revenue on the line. So that's a great way to win trust. What was your actual percentage increase in the reporting period that you used to apply for the 50 fastest?
If I can remember correctly, as you said, it's a 3-year look back. So
Mhm.
from year 1 to year 3 of that period, there was probably a 50% increase in revenue.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
how did you scale your operations over those 3 years to meet the needs of that increase?
Right. So there are a couple of things. One, from an infrastructure standpoint, um, 75% of what we do is based on the labor, the people who do it. So we had to really invest in our sourcing
Yeah,
and in our recruiting. I Fortunately, because I did work in the industry before, I had a lot of relationships, so I kind of know where to go to find people.
yeah,
And then with with online sourcing, we just really had to find the sources that had. So we use maybe about 5 different sources because each of our primary areas has kind of a different way of finding people. So we
yeah,
just kind of had to play with that a little bit and figure out as technology evolved, what was LinkedIn good for? What was Indeed good for? What was Career Builder good
yeah.
for? Just different things like that. What was word of mouth good for? So that's one of the ways that we build is that we focused on how do we attract and retain good, high quality talent. Another thing that we had to work on is our project management. So I set up a project management office. And that was really important to have someone that had a very high view of all of our contracts.
Right.
So he could see the quality, the QA/QC, he could spot problems. And then the other piece that we really had to invest in is our internal technology, and how we were keeping records, how we were able to provide visibility. So if I need something, if I got a call from a customer at 6 o'clock at night, 8 o'clock at night, 10 o'clock at night, which isn't unheard of,
Right.
I could easily go into the system and find the information. So that's the third thing that we really invested in. And those are, fortunately, we are remote. So we didn't have to really look at expanding real estate. But we did have to look at, well, how do we make sure that we are retaining customer information? So of course, our IT security, things like that, they had to grow with us. But I will tell you, at the beginning of my business, I put a lot of time into a business plan, and my advisor said, well, what are going to be your triggers? What's going to be your trigger for when you bring on, a full-time project manager? At the time, I had like part-time project managers. What are going to be your triggers for growth? And so as I got close to those things, then I started thinking about, okay, well, based on that, I'm going to need to hire X in probably 2, 3, 6 months. So
Yeah.
I started working on that path.
So how many part-time versus full-time people do you have in this distributed environment?
Let's see. At one point, about 30% of our workforce was part-time because, as I mentioned, we have some ancillary services, which is religious services.
Yeah.
We have a corporate chaplain, and because of our corporate chaplain, we were able to get some contracts where we provided religious services to the military.
Super.
So, yeah, so with those contracts, those folks only work part-time because they're working on Sunday mornings. They're working maybe 20 hours a week developing religious education classes, things like that. So at one time we had about 30 people on those teams. So that represented maybe about 25% of our workforce
Okay. And the rest of them are full-time?
full time. Mhm.
And you are distributed, so that information sharing is really key.
Very
Um,
much so.
did you change CRMs when you started to grow, or have you been with the same CRM for the whole time?
We started out with Excel as our CRM.
That's right. You told me
Uh,
that. The
we don't
place
have
to start.
Yeah, I mean, we don't really have a fancy CRM for two reasons. One, the main reason is because predominantly, we're in the federal government space. And so kind of the reasons why you use a CRM, it just wasn't compelling enough for that environment.
Mhm.
We couldn't necessarily connect with our customers using CRMs. So that investment, we just didn't feel like we would get the return on investment.
Okay.
So right now we use a system that's more of an intelligence gathering system that we use for CRM. But the traditional uses of CRM in the more corporate space, we don't really have that. So we kind of cobble together a couple of different CRMs. And then we also use CRMs that our customers use. We use that for connecting with their stakeholders.
Yeah, that makes sense. When you're dealing, especially with federal contractors, that they have
Mhm.
very specialized systems. That's amazing. I think it's important to know how we scale our systems, mostly that information sharing. I'm so glad that you talked about how important it is for every team member to have access to customer information so the customer feels seen. I'm a
Mhm.
big fan of making sure that the customer knows we know what's going on. Sounds like that's a big factor in your growth. Okay, the third important question in our interview series here at the Whole CXO is talking about your whole picture. Can you tell me, as you have scaled the company, you did increase your team.
Mhm.
Uh, how have you maintained synchrony in your whole life, being able to keep your energy up and your health at a high level of performance?
Ooh.
Or
That's
is
the
that
secret
still an
sauce there.
aspirational goal?
No, you know what? Not as much. So, I'm an empty nester now. My son graduated from high school back in 2022. And so for some of those years leading up to his graduation, um, it was kind of tough to balance everything, and I didn't have as many people on my team that I could delegate to. But I will tell you, one of my secret sauces is that I use a lot of fractional people before it was cool to call them fractional.
Yeah.
And so I was able to have some very high level SMEs because a lot of them didn't want to work full time. They were either, looking towards retirement or they, it was their business.
Hmm.
So I was able to have SMEs in multiple different areas versus having, one SME in one area.
Hmm.
But I was also able to use other fractional people to really help me to, be able to delegate. So that's one way that I've been able to really balance using fractional folks for everything from my admin to my HR and recruiting to business development, project management. So that's one way that I've been able to balance. The other thing that someone told me is you can have it all, but not at the same time.
Yeah. Right. That's smart.
So in knowing that, I knew that hard work was for a season. I was talking to one of my mentors one time, and dinner time was approaching, and I said, "Well, can I call you back? I need to go eat dinner with my family." And he kind of laughed, and I said, "Why are you laughing?" And he said that because you're taking time out to eat with your, dinner with your family, you need to be on the grind. And I just said, "Sorry, I'm not going to do that." My parents didn't do that. And dinner was a very important part for us. And I said, I may come back and call you at 8 o'clock, but for now, I need to go.
Right.
Um, and I think that for men and women, it's a lot different. And so one of my female mentors told me very early on, understand what's important to you.
Yeah.
And you don't have to sacrifice. I didn't feel like I had to sacrifice revenue. I just had to figure out, okay, do I want to be now? Fortunately, we are virtual. So I didn't really have to make that decision of, well, do I travel a lot or do I stay local and make less money? So those are just some key pieces of information that I was able to glean before I started the business. So I knew those things. The other thing, I think we were talking about this before, is my schedule.
Yeah.
So one of the things about me, I found out at 34 that I had ADD, that I have ADD and I'm dyslexic. So, so one of the things I have to be very cognizant of is being overstimulated.
Hmm.
And I hit a wall around 4 o'clock every day. And so I really have to manage my calendar optimal output. So that means for me, I can't have back to back to back to back meetings all day,
Yeah.
which seemed possible at the beginning of the virtual workforce, but it's just not realistic. So I manage my calendar to a T. I do have a fantastic assistant who, she understands that. And so we work well together. I call that my ADD tax, and I'm okay with it. I know a lot of people who will, manage their own calendars and everything. I can't really do that. So I'm okay with that. So that's really how I manage now. I had at one point I had senior level people in all areas in business development and different areas. Unfortunately, as I said earlier, we are in the government space, so we were impacted by Doge earlier this year.
Yeah.
So I did have to kind of restructure. So we had a reduction in force. So I learned how to use AI. I am very savvy with AI, and I
Right.
was able to replace a lot of the tasks that some folks that left us were doing. And so that's been phenomenal. I'm really glad that I was forced to learn that. So I would say all those things kind of help me, have that balance. And I just crash sometimes. I mean, literally, I just crash, and I have clarity breaks. So I'm very intentional about scheduling those every quarter, and I just go ahead and put
Nice.
it on the schedule. And usually another thing that I will do is at the beginning of the year, actually right around this time of year, I will ask my assistant, go on the calendar and give me the day off before a holiday and the day after. So that even if I decide not to go somewhere, at least I have a little bit of an intellectual break and I'm
Right.
not in meetings back to back. So I've just learned those little things that help me operate with, with my ADD, with my dyslexia, because there are a lot of benefits to that. I can operate at a very high level for, for short spurts. So that's the not so secret sauce.
Well, and you've delegated the things you're not good at. I think it's important for top leaders to recognize that. We don't have to do it all. We
You
need to
don't have to
get
do it
help
all.
where we're just, I mean, admitting that you have ADD and dyslexia and that you need help in some of these areas helps you to move faster and deliver what you do best.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I will caveat what one of the things that I thought when I first started understanding that one of the impacts of the dyslexia meant that it was much harder for me to really grasp financial management. And I just said, well, I'll just hire somebody else to do that. Can't do that, right? I had to improve my knowledge of financial management, financial statements, the whole gamut, because there's only so much that I can delegate in that realm.
Yeah.
And I do have I finally was able to find a fractional CFO, and that has been phenomenal. I was relying too heavily on my accountant, and I didn't realize that some of the things that I was asking her, really, those things weren't in her realm of expertise as an accountant. She wanted to support me,
Yeah.
um, but they just weren't things that an accountant can do. So now having a CFO is definitely very helpful, but still, I still have to own the information. I still have to
True.
own those things.
You still need to
And
know
that
how to
helps to
read the
push me.
data. Good. Well, you shared some really rich nuggets here, and I really appreciate you taking the time, Melanie. I promise to keep it short, and I want to keep that promise so that others know
Okay.
that I'm not going to take up all
Okay.
of their day. But I'm going to leave your LinkedIn connection in my
Thank
article so
you.
that people can contact you if they want to get to know you a little bit better. Is that okay?
Awesome. That's
Yes,
awesome. I really appreciate the opportunity, and I wish everyone the best. This is entrepreneurial journey is a wonderful thing. It's one of the best things that ever happened to me.
fantastic. Thanks so much.